Hello, folks, it's David here, and yet again, you guys have taken so well to the ball shaving advert that they've come back for another one. Thanks for that, because as you all know, I love doing these for people like you who shave your balls, even though it's winter and it's cold, and quite frankly, I don't understand why anyone wouldn't want to be walking about with a carpet down there. But a lot of you seem not to, okay? And yeah, ball shaving company are back. Who'd have known that in the Heart and Hand universe there were so many of you who love getting your nuts debushed, but every time we do one of these, people respond. And I suppose with Christmas coming up, you need a gift for someone. Why not say to someone, I've always felt your balls were too hairy, and hand them over one of these things. To be fair, if you are into ball shaving, and I am stunned each month by the amount of you who are, then yes, I'm not going to lie, then the amount of ball shaving that goes on in our community is huge. But if you're going to do it with Manscaped. The Manscaped Perfect Package 4.0. Perfect Package is the best in the business. It's a hygiene bundle and includes a Lawnmower 4.0, Weed Whacker, Boxers, Travel Kit and liquid formulation. See, to be honest, I haven't used the Lawnmower because I believe in the sanctity of the pubic area. But I have used the Weed Whacker for my nose and ears, and it's ace, right? This is a good package. You might not use all of it. I wouldn't, but you would, clearly. So if you want to save some money, go to manscaped.com and use the code RANGERS. You get 20% off and free shipping with the code RANGERS at manscaped.com. So during the winter, you might be spending a wee bit more time inside with your balls, and you might as well make them beautiful. So you know what to do. Manscaped.com, RANGERS. Hello everyone, and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast, the podcast that has been enjoying as Rangers have gone goal crazy domestically over the last week. My name's David Edgar, I'm your host, as I am every week, but I'm delighted this week for a kind of special edition, I think it's fair to say, of, well, not special because he's on it, but special because what he's on to talk about. When Rangers release their accounts, there's a lot of misinformation, and there's only one man to turn to when that happens, and that is, of course, Big Suave himself, Mr. Andy McGowan, the Sage of Saltkits. How are we, my friend?
I'm very good, David. I don't know if the Sage of Saltkits is much a kind of compliment, but I'll take it.
No, the three tunes. Quite a few mastermind winners, I'm sure, have come from down there. Saltkits currently is a sinkhole. Have you seen this? It literally does have a sinkhole.
Aye, well, I do, because this isn't going to be too much of my personal information. I bought a flat, completing the 5th of September on that street. And then 3 days later, I get a text from somebody with a link saying 3 houses drop into sinkhole in Chapel Road. I'm like, no. But it was 2 doors down for the one I bought, but luckily I'm not affected by it. But buyer beware, as they say.
Cammy emptor, but there was no such sinking feeling at Ibrox yesterday. See what I did there? As Rangers, thank you. I've been doing this for a few years now. As Rangers took on Ross County at Ibrox. Andy, it actually did feel yesterday like the opening conceding goal has now almost we've passed through anger, I think, because I would expect Ibrox to be, as it was against Aberdeen, but it was almost like, well, of course we conceded the opening goal from their first attack after a mistake in midfield, because that's what we do. The players seem to just shrug it off and go, fair enough. But my goodness, I honestly can't remember a run like this, because it's every game. And it's certainly every domestic game, and it's the same pattern. It's Rangers start off normally, fine, get the ball down, try to play a bit of football, and then there'll be a mistake, either in midfield or defence, and from the first attack, the opposition will score within the opening 10, 15 minutes, and Rangers thankfully come back and get the win, usually, although there'll be a couple of draws in there. But It's bizarre. I honestly can't. It's 14 times this season Rangers have gone behind in a match, and that's 16 points from losing positions. Now, credit to them for having that fighting spirit. That's great. But good God, lads, yes, you won the league by 25 points, and it's jolly sporting of you to give everybody a goal start and see if you can overcome it, but gone no day that.
It's like when your wife or your child or something does something that really annoys you, and you shout at them the first time, you shout at them the second time, you shout at them the third time, and by the fourth or fifth time they do it, you don't say anything, you just seethe, and you grit your teeth and you fold your arms. And I felt that yesterday at Ibrox. But what I will say is that I really enjoyed that game yesterday, and I think, in a perverse way, that goal added something to it. Not that I'm condoning that we lose a goal first every game, but I mean, the first 5 minutes, Davey, I don't know about you, but I thought we started well. We looked very sharp, and then we have this bloody goal, and then we just kind of picked it up and kept going. And I didn't really think we were going to lose the game or draw. I didn't see horror story written on that game yesterday after the Ross County scored. There was just too much going on in the first 5-10 minutes to suggest that we were going to be labouring that day. But you said it, credit to Rangers. I mean, to go behind so many times and come back, it tells you something. It tells you we're losing too many goals early, right? But also it tells you something about our game and our resilience and the mindset. And, when all said and done, we've scored one less goal than Celtic, who are supposedly, Rinus Michels Holland 1974 again, attacking wise. So we're doing something right. But we need to cut them out. And there's a couple of wee themes that we'll probably touch upon that I've noticed that, Lundstrom, for one, he's been involved in a couple of these goals. I don't know what, I cannot put my finger on it, because if you look at a goal in isolation.
Slow starter?
Well, I don't know, because we started all right, St Mirren, started all right yesterday.
I think
Lundstrom, you mean?
Lundstrom, but some players do. I remember the great Walter Smith saying Stuart McCall was a wonderful player, but no use as a sub because he took 15 minutes to warm up.
Well, it could be. I mean, it might just be we're not intimate enough with John Lundstrom to understand that that's the way he plays. But he needs to sharpen it up, because he lost the ball sloppily against St Mirren. Wasn't aggressive enough, winning it back in the middle of the park. Goal. The same thing happened yesterday. I wasn't so annoyed at him no controlling Haji's pass. I was annoyed at him in the way he's kind of lackadaisical efforts to retrieve it. He was covering ground as opposed to contacting the man. I don't want to isolate him. It was one of the things, but the response was really good, David. It really was.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and I think that I don't want to pick on John Lundstrom, but he has been involved in a couple of them. I think the defending was really poor. Again, we all go back to our days at school, and it is true, and you expect we're surprised when we see things like this. If someone in midfield has time to play a pass, don't play offside, because the chances are they'll pick the right pass, which is exactly what Ross County did. The boy Humbo's a very talented player, actually. I don't know if you saw the free kick he scored a couple of weeks ago. It was unbelievable, and he took his chance, I thought, pretty well. I just thought everybody involved from a Rangers point of view there was, initially I thought Haji's pass, I still don't think it was great, but then it kicks off, as has been the case with goals we've conceded this season. It's very rarely one individual mistake. It generally one kicks off a chain that ends up with the ball in our net, which is what happened yesterday. A kind of loose pass, poor control, midfield isn't set in the right place, defence isn't set in the right place, Goldson's playing the boy on, Balogun doesn't cover himself in glory. It was just a terrible goal to concede. And coming into the ground, meeting up with people outside, and they're all saying, let's just concede the first goal dead early and get it out the road. That gallows humour. And it kind of felt like that. But you're absolutely correct, because at no point did I feel like we were going to lose this match yesterday, because Rangers stepped up. And, there's always a special atmosphere, I think, on the Armed Forces Day at Ibrox. Armed Forces Days, and I think the commemoration day, it matters to us as a support. And I think that, again, it was beautifully done. There was a beautiful tribute beforehand, and I think that because of that, the fans we'll stick with them. there wasn't that anger that you might have seen it in certain other matches. But maybe that was it. I don't know. Or maybe it was just as you say, it's Ross County, and we are, with all due respect, confident to get the victory. But then we were treated to, as you say, I thought from an attacking point of view, a really terrific, exciting performance. Now we're going to talk separately about Ryan Kent, but the manager. Look, you didn't have to exactly be a master of psychology to work out that he was raging with the performance of the front players against Brøndby, and he then went into the squad. Lucky, of course, having Kent to come back in, so that takes care of itself. I did think we might see what we got, which was an hour, and whip him off and protect him. But in that hour, that was your Ryan Kent. But Hadji came in as well, and I thought that we had the right back. I was a little surprised to see Sakala start through the middle ahead of. I thought he might drop Alfie, but I thought Roof would play. But he mentioned this afterwards. We asked him about this afterwards, and he said that he told Sakala to stay up because he felt Alfie had been dropping too deep lately. And what we had there, and I think it worked out a bit better for Hadji, who I know you've had concerns about. We have to accept the lack of pace because it's not going to change, right? It's just not there. But having two flying machines, I thought really helped. And this idea that I'm guilty of sometimes of saying, pace is no use for us in Scotland because teams just sit in. It doesn't work like that. If you play the right ball, pace is... There's always got to be space. It's about how you use it. If you're just running into dead air, Michael O'Halloran style, then yes, pace is useless. But if you are clever, and I thought that Kent and Sakala yesterday were very, very clever in their movement. They stretched Ross County. They took defenders places they didn't want to go. And I don't think it's coincidence that Aribo, Bakuna in particular, but also Hadji in the second half, all played pretty well because the front guys enabled them to.
Yeah, I think first of all, let's talk about this team selection. I thought the fact that Bakuna and Aribo in the midfield was fairly notable. I know it's only Ross County, so you can't very well say it's brave to have two such attacking-minded players in the middle three. So, but I do like Sakala through the middle because I think he's better with his back to goal than maybe we give him credit for. And that gives him adaptability. He can do a bit of what Alfie does, which is he can hold it up, not as good as Alfie, no way, but he can hold it up and link. But also, he's got that ability that if he does get a turn or a roll on a player, he can get away from them. And he can also go to wide areas. So you've seen him move out wide when the substitutions came late in the game. So I think Sakala is slowly but surely starting to find his feet in the team and his roles. Roles, I say roles plural, in the team because he'll be used in various places. And you mentioned Hadji. I have been critical of Hadji. So 1 week I think he's terrible. 1 week I say, right, this boy's really got something. And I've said many a time in the last few weeks that I don't think he's a starter. And I thought Brøndby, he came on and changed the game for us as a sub. But maybe there's no maybe about it. I'm probably completely wrong. And it's about the balance. Maybe Hadji and Morelos as if 2/3 of the front three just mean there's not enough pace there. And it's actually getting that balance against Hadji's craft and guile. Because I thought Hadji and Bakuna were on the same wavelength yesterday. I think some of their wee 1-2s between they two in particular were exquisite. And I thought Hadji had a really good game. So I mean, Kent's a different. Kent transforms everything.
Yeah, let's take a moment here to, because that goal. Now, at the time, I thought, what a goal that is. And then seeing it back, I was like, it's even better than I thought it was. It had the lot, that one. Would you like some crispy or dip? It was fabulous. And the thing is about him is these things aren't one-offs. And I also think he's got something that you have to earn over a period, and he's been with us a few years now, and he's got it. And that is, other teams are terrified of him when he gets the ball. And he also brings that buzz to the stadium. But more importantly, I think his teammates all go up a level because I think that natural thing that football's have of, I want him to think I'm a good player. And two, I think that, he'll dig his it, he'll do something. And it just gives you an extra level of confidence. It was almost a cameo yesterday because, he was only on for an hour, and I think, the way the game was, it was one towards the end, so the intensity dropped off. But in that first half, you were like, oh my God, that is exactly what we've been missing.
Yeah, great Rangers players have expectation and they deal with it. And Brian Kent is now becoming one of those players. You think back, I'm not want to say Laudrup and Gascoigne, but it was the same kind of dynamic. You look to them to make the difference. And some players can crumble with that. Some just consistently deliver. And he's starting to get to the stage of his Rangers career where more often than not he delivers. And I mean, we think back to his last game. Was his last game against Celtic? Can't remember, but he played against Celtic.
Think so. Yeah, I
he
think
wasn't.
it was.
We learned afterwards he was nowhere near fit, but he played and he contributed to the game because Celtic were fearful for the whole time he was on the pitch, and even with one leg, he was good enough to contribute and deliver. But that goal yesterday, I mean, that's what you pay money to go to see football for. People that can go past players, extreme skill, trickery, the buzz around the stadium when he gets the ball, and then shots like that. That's the stuff that makes school kids want to play football. And we're really, really lucky to have him. And I mean, we'll talk later on about accounts and selling players and all this kind of stuff. This is all part of the plan. I think we forget when Kent came, he was just a Liverpool youngster with high hopes. And we kind of learned that he was a good, hard-working guy, a bit of talent. There were still doubts about him in his first 6 months, 7 months. And then slowly but surely we said, this boy's got something. And he's matured. And then last year was when he came to... He graduated as a Rangers player because he was a major, major player and a fantastic season for us. And this year he looks like a senior player to me. I mean, he came on yesterday, back for injury. You're expecting him to nurse his cell in, dynamite for the first minute to when he gets substituted. That's a Rangers player, and I really, really hope that he looks after himself during the international break, just keeps working on his conditioning, and come that semi-final, he just picks up where he left off yesterday.
I think that he had that freshness look about him that suggested here's a guy who hasn't been fit, who did put his body on the line and suffered for it when we needed him, and by God we did need him. Having him, his presence against Celtic alone, it gave everybody a big boost when we really needed it, and it puts fear in their mind because they fear him. So yeah, I think that yesterday there was a freedom about him that looked like, yes, I can do the things that I know I can do. My body will respond when I tell it to. So I loved watching him. And, as you say, once we got in front, I think it was pretty set. But we did go on and rather than, I think that's the first time this season at Ibrox we have maybe Livingston in the Cup, we've just gone on and put the game out of sight and go to 4-1 up. Now, we mentioned Juninho Bakuna. Hasn't had an awful lot of game time, and I think that has maybe opened some doubts up in people's minds because the sense of, well, wait a minute, why isn't he playing? Because it's not like the team has been setting the heather on fire and he's not been playing. He's came on for some cameos and in all honesty hasn't grabbed attention. Let's be quite honest, but. Yesterday, and I go back to Sakala's hat trick last week. I said that new signings need a game early on to just give you something to go, right, that's why he's here, and it gives you something to hold on to. And I think yesterday was that game for him because he was excellent. He was buzzing about, and of course a tremendous goal, which certainly helps. But again, I think that he's going to be a player that, because he tries things, sometimes they won't come off, and sometimes people will grumble about it. But again, when he does try something that does come off, it looks as though it could be a difference maker.
Yep, and I mean, yesterday was a game where we were on the front foot for the vast majority, and I think that's the kind of game that will suit him because I don't think he's Terry Hurlock defensively. But I think, was it James Forrest had the Huddersfield fanzine boy or podcast boy on when we signed him, and we got his opinion on him, and he kind of said, look, on his day, he's a match winner. Other days, he doesn't look interested, and it's this sugar or shite kind of scenario that was probably why he was playing at Huddersfield. He couldn't get a decent level of consistency in between the two, and I think we think to that Hearts game when we changed the substitutions happened against Hearts when we were 1-0 up, and we kind of gave up that left hand side when he came on and played on the left of the front three. We kind of said it was the wrong substitution. He didn't look as if he was a kind of pressing attacker. So yesterday it was interesting for me to see him just that line deeper in midfield because I think we've seen from Davey is he's a good passer of the ball. He looks like he can pass through lines.
That
And he
seems to
also,
be that's the thing that I've taken as to what he can
aye,
bring to the side. Is he's a guy who can thread a ball.
he can thread a ball. That's the phrase I'm looking for. That's why you're the gaffer, Davey. So he can thread a ball, but also I think he can step beyond a man, which is kind of what Aribo uses when he plays in midfield. He can carry the ball from the middle to the final third. And I think it can become, based on what I seen yesterday, and I know it's only Ross County, he could become a potential match winner for another potential match winner. And when you've got guys like in your team, then they've got more chance of digging games out when things aren't going quite to plan. He looks as if he likes to shoot. I mean, his goal was a cracker. I liked it. But also nearly scored an exquisite curler with fantastic technique. It nearly went to the top corner, and it would have been it might have eclipsed Kent's goal if it actually went in the back of the net. The boys get undoubted talent, and you've got to hope that kind of laconic streak that goes through them, which Aribo kind of had when he came, if you think about it. Aribo's transformed from that laconic, big, lanky boy that was a dribbler, kind of like Ajaria was, right? And loads of skill, but no steel, or not enough steel. Aribo's turning into a bit of a machine now, because I keep talking about if he can add the steel that Gerrard had as a midfielder, and that kind of, whatever it is, killer instinct, winning mentality, whatever it is, if he can do that to Aribo, and if Bakuna can get some of that medicine as well, not that he's ever going to be a powerhouse, but if he can add that kind of week after week after week, I need to be performing, then he'll earn the contract at the end of the 2 years. Because the interesting thing about Bakuna is that obviously we know details of the deal with Huddersfield, where it's basically they get nothing for him, and we've took him on a 2-year deal, and then at the end of the 2-year deal, basically, Huddersfield may get something, we might get something, they might move on, whatever. So basically, both Rangers and Huddersfield have got a dual interest here in how Bakuna does. And to be honest to the boy, for what I've seen his career, if he doesn't do it here, then he's probably going to be going down a fairly dead-end career.
Yeah,
so there's a lot riding on this move for him and what he does at Rangers, which is good ingredients. So it's down to him now. He's in the best place. If he can't do it, then he's not really got anybody else to blame.
No, I think that's all fair, and talent will only take you so far, and I think that anybody just needs to look at the Rangers team and see the likes of Ryan Kent, and I mean Ryan Kent's got more natural talent, I'd say, than just about anybody in Scotland, but he works. You look at the top teams down south, and I think we're seeing at the moment the difference between, say, a Manchester United and a Liverpool or a Chelsea. There's a huge difference. Being talented is not enough. You've got to be talented and prepared to put in the graft and the hard yards. It's just the way football has gone. So yeah, I mean, at the moment, I would say you can say I certainly wouldn't be thinking of putting him into the side if we were at Easter Road or Tynecastle or Parkhead. But there are games where it's a different challenge when you need to open a side up, and I think that having his ability to do that. We shout out for Ryan Jack, probably the biggest cheer of the day yesterday. The manager said afterwards it was probably a wee bit early for him, but the circumstances of the match, 4-1 up, allowed us to put him on, and it just gave everybody a boost, didn't it?
I think psychologically for Ryan Jack it'll be massive, because it gets him on the pitch before the international break, and much like I'm saying about Kent, he's then get a week or two to just tip top that conditioning and be super ready. I don't think we should expect miracles for Ryan Jack, because he's a consistency player, Dave, isn't he? When he's hit his consistent forms, it's been runs and runs of games, and he's just been that number 8, literally, but also if you're saying an 8 or a 10 every week. And I think he needs games to get to that level. I don't think he's a player that just comes in and immediately gets to that. I'm interested to see how we use him, because we spoke about Lundstrom earlier. I think him and Lundstrom could be a really safe pair of hands possession-wise as a midfield too. Gives us loads of options. It means that you can rotate again and get the best out of Davis for a game, particular games. So fantastic to see him back. I didn't realise it was 9 months. It feels less because we've had the close season and everything just flew by because of lockdown in 55. Everything, 9 months is a long time to lose out your game at Ryan Jack's age. So I hope everything's behind him, and it's a new signing for us. It really is. It's a cliche, but it's a new signing in midfield for us.
Yeah, well, it absolutely is. And, you just need to look at the difference he makes to Rangers and Scotland, incidentally. It's not just
Mm-hmm.
Rangers, that when he's in the team, the amount of goals Rangers concede goes right down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's no coincidence. And so,
No.
and in the past, some people have complained about, well, attacking. We've got enough attackers. We've got plenty of attackers. It's the back door that's the problem at the moment. But 10 goals in 2 games, Andy. Now, I'm a great believer that when you're playing badly, you don't turn out. I think we all accept the defence has got a way to go, and it might even be a case that it's not going to change till personnel changes, i.e., Helander gets back, or we do something in January. But I think that in terms of the attacking, we weren't creating chances, and we were just about getting by. Then we started creating chances and not taking them, and now we're doing both. And I'm a great believer that you can't just be off your form, not very good, and then flick of a switch and boom, you're flying again. I don't think it works like that. I think there are steps on the ladder, if you like, and you've got to touch every rung before you get to where you want to go. It does seem certainly to be heading in that direction now.
Yeah, but I do agree with you that it's not just a flick of a switch, but I do think that when you get a bit of click and you get that confidence, it just kind of catalyses everything, doesn't it? And I think we saw that at Motherwell. That game just, the shackles came off and we believed in ourselves again. And we have loads of attacking options, and if anything this season, we've not found the formula because of different reasons: form, injury, poor pre-seasons. We're talking about Kent, you're talking about Morelos there, it's no hint form. But we do have the options. This is the thing, it's not as if we've no had the options, we've just not found the right formula, because we played Motherwell and then we went to Brøndby, and I'm sitting looking at the team sheet and I'm saying, I'm delighted with that front three, and then they're absolutely stinking. So things like that, you can't legislate for it. It shouldn't really happen. That Motherwell front three going into Brøndby should have done more. That's a wee bit of concern, but it's less a concern because you then know that you've got other players that can come in. But I would like to see a bit of a settled front three for a couple of games. And to be honest, I've said before, without Morelos, we're a different team. But we should maybe find a way of playing without Morelos. And we've seen an example yesterday with Sakala, and then you bring on Roof, and we just need to find a way that we're maybe not as reliant on Morelos, because he's definitely lost a bit of spark. And I'm not a subscriber to say he's playing terrible. I don't think he's as bad as we're making out, or some people are making out. I just feel that he's playing that wee bit deeper. He's been that wee bit more laboured. He's not getting some breaks, but he's definitely nowhere near the Morelos that we know he can be. Whether that's a hunger thing, he's moved into a big house and he's settled, and the wife's there and the Wayne's there, and that might just be a hunger thing. The big moves kind of not quite as apparent as it might have been before for him. But whatever it is, we need to find a way where we find a front three that is relatively settled. And I think that's a rhythm thing would see our season kick in, because we're talking about how we've been fit and start this season, and we're still top. Me and you, Davey, know, and I've seen Rangers teams that didn't really kick in until now, November, December, and then they went on a run. I'm hoping that's what happens now, but I think we need to get a wee bit more settled team. I think there's just a touch too many changes, especially for the front three.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there, my friend. Just before we do go on to the accounts, let's chat a little bit about more speculation about Steven Gerrard. The Aston Villa job has come up, and I don't think Aston Villa are making any secret of the fact that he is somebody that they're interested in. They have, according to serious reports in England, a short list of 6, and he's one of them on it. So, clearly there are other people involved in the frame in it. But look, this is just going to happen. It's going to happen every Premier League job out with the top 4. That's just a fact.
Well, the good thing for Rangers is the longer he's quoted for jobs down in England, it means we're doing all right, and his stock's high. And I think it's totally justified. If anybody looking outside in to Rangers and the job he's done knows he's done a great job. You get the dates in the Scottish press saying, he's won 1 trophy or whatever. what a myopic way of looking at things. The job he's done is undoubted, but it's more than that. People can see the mentality and the kind of that intangible stuff that not every manager can develop. Some managers can come in and just continue what's went before them, but not many managers can create the environment from scratch. He's done that. Well, him and his backroom team have. So I don't think there's any surprise that he's been quoted for this job, and he'll continue to be. And one day he'll go, and it might not be the Liverpool job that we all think he's holding out for. I think the question for Gerrard is there's two. Is the Aston Villa job one where he's going to get the longevity to succeed? Another question is, can he keep his stock high for much longer at Rangers? Now, if he wins the league this year and gets into the Champions League, he might feel that that's his job's done and he goes in the summer. Or he might feel he wants to go into the Champions League. The only comparator we've really got is Brendan Rodgers, because he went to Leicester and has done really well and his stock has got even higher. But by the same token, Gerrard could go to Aston Villa and it could go disastrously wrong. And, you know, once you go wrong once down there, it's pretty hard to get back on that saddle.
Well, Lampard would be an
example. Exactly. There's a guy that done great with Derby, went to Chelsea, had a good start, and then where is he now? You know, so he's got to be very careful with his next move. And the Liverpool thing is I say a spectre, but it's always going to be a consideration for him, isn't it?
Oh,
if he goes to Aston Villa, will he ever get to Liverpool? Very, very much harder to prove yourself at Aston Villa in that league than to continue to prove yourself at Rangers. I think that's a big question.
Yeah, I don't really buy there's two things that came up in what you said there. First of all, that we only won one trophy out of 9. That is such a stupid argument. Put forward generally by people who don't like us, because yeah, see if he'd come in and everything had been hunky-dory at Rangers, or even normal at Rangers, then fine. But he had a massive task to do. And he could have won 3 cups by now and no title, and we wouldn't be happy. He had to get
exactly.
So, you know, it's a nonsense. It's a silly argument put forward by people who just want to have a dig at us. Equally, the other side of that is, you know, what does he have left to prove at Rangers? Well, a lot. He hasn't won any cups. There's one. You know, he needs to retain a title. Winning one is great, but the greats retain things. And as you mentioned, he hasn't taken us into the Champions League. So there are plenty to achieve, but it's the problem we will always have in Scotland, that we are next door to the biggest league in the world, the most money, the most glamour, and it's where everybody wants to go. So, you know, you look at Martin on our EPL show last week called it the Coaches League, and the top coaches in the world are coaching there. It's that simple. You just need to look at the people who are there. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but as you say, you know, nobody was coming in for Pedro. So I think that as you say, it's a bit of a bittersweet thing, but we'll just have to wait and see. Right, Andy, the accounts were released on Friday. You had a couple of days to look over them. We put an article up on our Heart and Hand and Patreon if you want to go and read that. Hi folks, I'll just take a wee minute out here to talk about NordVPN. Now, NordVPN are official club partner of Rangers, so you know that they're trustworthy. And trust is a big thing on the internet. I'm afraid that you can't trust people because there are lots of bad people out there who want to steal your data. And if you are using other Wi-Fi to your home network, if you are out and about and you use Wi-Fi or your 4G when you're outside, 5G, whatever, then hackers are able to get to your information, and it's such a pain if you've ever been hacked and you've had to change passwords or you've had to change bank cards, etc. It is so time consuming, and you don't need to do it because all you need to do is sign up to NordVPN and know you're protected. And of course, if you're ever going on a short holiday, then you know what I'm talking about. You know where you can go to get absolutely thousands of options of where your internet is. But security is the key thing, let's face it. And you can get 73% off your NordVPN plan and a bonus gift if you go to nordvpn.com/heart and hand and use the code heart and hand. You will get up to 73% off your NordVPN plan and a bonus gift. So just go to nordvpn.com/heart and hand, use the code heart and hand, and be protected. Get up to 73% off your NordVPN plan and a bonus gift. But headline figure, losses of £23.5 million. I'm basically just going to turn it over to you now because you know a lot about it and I don't.
So, but I have no idea why I'm in this position where everybody now turns to me to explain the Rangers accounts, right?
Because accounts are really fucking boring, right? And we only, with all due respect, people like you get blood pumping in a certain area of your body about them. So if we can get somebody that knows what they're talking about that we trust, then yeah, I would rather that you did it. Andy, it's like a business. You've got to have people who have certain skills to do things. Like, how Heart and Hand runs, right? I'm the talent. The rest of you are the brickies. You're the builders, right? So this is go and build us a financial wall.
I'm not even going to comment on that disparaging comment to your colleagues. You'll get a brick out of the head off one of the brickies one day for saying that. So, I'll position it first, right? I think people now want or hope that I come on here, get the guitar out and start singing Three Little Birds by Bob Marley and everything's going to be okay, right? When I look at this, I look at it from the point of view that I'm actually trying to find things that worry me. I'm trying to find things to say, right, am I being vigilant enough? I look at it as if, right, if this was Celtic, what would I be saying with a critical eye? Because it is very, very easy to be too close to Rangers and give the benefit of doubt, especially when, as I am, you're very sympathetic and grateful to the board and investors because, we've had 55, greatest year of our football lives for most days, and there's an emotional link towards the people that made that responsible. So I try to wash that away, right? And the £23.5 million loss, that is quite a big number to polish because it's massive, right? There's no getting away from it. And on the face of it, anybody looking at that from the outside in would probably say, how can you even put a positive spin on that? But like everything else, Rangers is a very, very unique financial situation. There's not many clubs been in the situation that we've had since 2011, 2012, and before that, to be honest. So we've got to take a massive dose of context for all sorts of things in here. And the only way you can really do that is by digging a wee bit deeper into it, which Born Bastard Andy does. So I'm not going to bore everybody with facts and figures, but I'll give you some headline figures. But what I will try to do, David, is I'll try and get underneath and say, right, this is what I think, right? Now, I'm basing it on my opinion, but I'm also basing it on, I've taken counsel for people that are more intelligent in this regard than me. So I'm basing it on something that's pretty sound in my opinion, right? Mm-hmm. So this is a COVID set of accounts. Now, anybody that has been familiar with football clubs' COVID accounts will know that they are cataclysmic. They are really, really bad. And I'm talking about the biggest clubs in Europe. Now, we were never, ever going to be immune to it. But I think, personally, the first thing I'd say about these accounts is I think that coming out of it, I think we'll be looking very, very good, right? So what I'm saying to you is this time next year, next accounts, given the context that we had a year without fans through the gates, I think we'll recover very, very quickly from it, and there won't be a massive hangover from it, right? Which is a thing in itself, because I think when you look around Europe, a lot of clubs are going to have a lot of hangover from COVID impact for many, many years. Hence why you've got European Super League, stuff like that. That's how big it is. So, headline, we went from a revenue of 59 million last year, which I thought was getting back to normal, down to 47.7. So that's down 11 million. That's a lot. Why did that happen with no fans through the doors? And that's the stadium generated income was down almost 20 million, 19 million to be precise. Okay. Mm-hmm. So 90 million down and through the gates. However, you've had an uptick across sponsorship, broadcasting, commercial and prize money of 7.6, which goes some way to offset it. So in amongst this books, there is some major points to note that are actually significant successes. And I'll explain them later. we've spent less this year, or this set of accounts, than we did before, but just, right, it's down from about 77 million in cost to about 74.5, so down marginally, 2.5 million. The first team costs are up by almost 4 million. So the first team bill for wages is 33.5, and then we've got other costs, other staff, so that's all the rest, Ibrox, Rangers, tick office, commercial, everybody that works for Rangers. Those costs went up about 550k. So we have quite a high wage bill overall now, very high, in fact, too high. So even against the normal revenue, it's too high, and I think we'll see. The first team wage bill go down, to be brutally honest.
Is that because we're in a cycle where guys arrive on a certain level of contract, do well? I'm thinking of Goldson, Kamara, etc. There's Tav, Morelos. There's quite a few of Kent have all had contract improvements. Is that reflected in this?
I think there's that, and I think there's been the emotional, the emotional fog of 10 in a row, 55, which I think has skewed normal decisions that would be made, and I'll come on to why I know that to be the case. So I think the board have done us a big favour, and in terms of keeping players or not selling players, and giving rewards to players in terms of wages that maybe under normal circumstances wouldn't have happened, and we've now got a slightly inflated wage bill. That to have a £33.5 million wage bill for a team that is effectively positioned for Europa League money is too high. I think the high 20s is where we'll be. And that would be roughly where we would have been pre-2012 when you account for inflation and football inflation, if you like. So I think the wage bill will drop. And that might happen naturally, because you spoke about Goldson there, so he'll drop off. Who else might? Davis, McGregor, they'll be big earners. And what you'll see is the replacement of those either from within or in good Bosmans or promotion of youth, that kind of thing. And that is what how long have we been talking about that for, Davey? About good footballing stroke fiscal interaction. That's what it's all about. You sell or you lose players and you don't break the bank to replace them. So that's where we're at. The accounts are awash with investment. Now, this is a key thing, because people say, right, why are the continued losses? Why are we losing so much money? The reason, in a sentence, is because we're investing it, right? And I've said this this will be the third year in a row that I've kind of alluded to this, that we have been in a position where we've had to accelerate growth, right? The board have come in since 2016. So since Dave King and everybody else came in, they've recognised, right, we are so far behind things. We really need to pile money into this to accelerate growth, just like any company would. And once we're back up to speed, we'll start to normalise things. So this is why there's been losses year on year. And this is why you've had investors piling money in and changing that debt to equity. It's because we've front-loaded investments. And Kieran Maguire, who is a very respected commentator in football finances, he kind of shrugs his shoulders and says, right, the front-loading investment, there's nothing more obvious to guys like him. But then in the Scottish media pack, you get sensationalism and doomsday scenarios, and they either don't understand that or they're deliberately ignoring it to create a narrative. But that's exactly what's happened.
Like your big brother Stephen McGowan in the Daily Mail.
If he was my big brother, let me tell you, I'd be having some pillow fight with him. I'd have a brick in it. I don't mean that, of course.
No, look, they're addicted. We've said this for a while. The Scottish media, and of course we know why, because it panders to Celtic fans. They're addicted to that narrative now, and it really is just that simple, that they can't get off it. So everything is seized upon it, and it's double think. Rangers post good figures. Well, it's because they're going into admin. Rangers post bad figures. Well, it's because they're going into admin, etc. Rangers sign a player, we're going into admin. Rangers don't sign a player, we're going into admin. As you say, this is why it's important that we, as a support, are able to cut through the nonsense.
Yep. So if you think about it, stadium yesterday looking great, right? Edmondson House is happening. The training ground's been more than spruced up. That does it a disservice. All this costs money, right? So there's about 5 million investment for infrastructure in these accounts. About 16.8 million is accountable to investment in the football squad, right? So all this stuff is great. That's why there's losses. I'll try and run through this a wee bit quicker because I could be here all day. Right? There's a couple of key things. The accounts state there were offers from private equity and family office to provide debt facilities. Now, what that means is that external companies who specialise in debt, offering debt, have come to Rangers and said, listen, we'll do you a deal. A family office is extremely wealthy individuals who look for fantastic or good commercial opportunities. Now, that tells a story. That tells you that they know the fundamentals are correct at Rangers. So once again, the narrative that things are on a downward slide or we're one step away from doomsday, a lot of crap, because these companies wouldn't come and offer us debt if they thought it was a bad big gamble, you know. But the biggest thing to take for that is that we didn't need to, because John Bennett, Julian Warhart and Alistair Johnson, they provided a loan at a lesser interest rate than we had from Dave King, right? So that's a saving straight away. And also over the next 6-7 years, I can't remember which, but 6 or 7 years, right? So we've basically just refinanced our debt to Dave King, which was at 8% for 6%. And that's good, right? Because if you went to the family office, the private equity, the external debt, you're double-digit interest rates, you're paying an upfront fee, and by the way, if anything goes wrong, you've not got it's not people with Rangers at heart that are at the end of that debt. They're going to call it in. So it's a really, really good way of getting debt, because we've got it from people who have got Rangers at heart. Now, people then say to me, right, well, why are they charging interest then if they've got Rangers at heart? Well, that's quite simple, and it might sound counterintuitive, but it's rehab, it's debt discipline. We need to demonstrate to the market that, see, if you give us debt in the future, we can do it, right? So it's serviceable debt, and it's fine. Debt is not a dirty word. Every company has debt, long term and short term, and I think we need to get away from this tremendous fear that some people have, where, oh, we've got debt. Every company's got debt. See, if you've not got debt, it means you've no investment, because you don't just fund it for cash. So that's a good thing, and that's a big key point there about Dave King. Has he got any influence on us now? I think Dave King's now left the building completely with that loan being paid off, and that's down to John Bennett, Walhard, and Alistair Johnson. So that's a big thing.
So that was, that is significant then.
Significant, yes, because I think we can all tell something's happened with Dave King, because the connection just isn't as cosy as it was in the club 1872 and everything else. That kind of side of things is, it's not an exact dovetail with what the club wants to happen. So we don't know, and we probably will never know, if Dave King asked for his money back, or if he left in a hurry, or if COVID in South Africa just spooked him. We don't know, but there has been a changing of the guard, and we can see that clearly now. And he's done his bit. So 26 million of shareholder loans converted to equity. Again, massive kudos to the investors that did that. The share issue from the fans that just took place in the summer, 4.5 million, that isn't in this account. That'll take next accounts. This converting debt to equity, this is a good thing, because what it does is it strengthens the balance sheet. All good companies have a strong equity base. John Bennett's referred to this, and it might mean nothing to the layman, but basically think it as your house. If you've got a load of equity in your house, you've got a strong financial position. So the more equity in a company, the better. Let me see. I'm going through these millions of points I've got here. Key thing about how we make our money that all Rangers fans should really understand. There's 4 key revenue pillars. There's ticket sales, right? So people come through the doors. We've got European football, and by European football we mean group stage football in Europa League. We've got our commercial, which is a multitude of things, but hospitality, retail, merchandise, Rangers TV, all that kind of stuff. And then the 4th pillar is player trading. So I'm slowing down here to emphasise this, because I described it in my report over the weekend as we are currently a table with 3 legs. We've got 4 revenue pillars. We are only, to this point, used 3: ticket sales, European football, and commercial, right? We have not sold players for commercial reasons yet. and I think every Rangers fan that's listening to this, if you want to take one thing away for this podcast, we are going to start selling players. It might feel unusual because we've been spoiled for the entire Gerrard era, if you think about it. And when we sell them, it's totally natural, and it's actually the biggest sign of normalisation of our football club since 2012, right? Now, the reason we've no sold players is dead simple. Our board, our investors, have backed the manager. They've laid it all out in the park because they knew we had to get back to the top of Scottish football. Now, I often said it didn't matter if we did it before or after 10 in a row. I think I was kidding myself on there. If we hadn't got 55 last year, the kind of existential impact on our football club and our psyche, I think it'd have been pretty profound, Davey. I think it would have been the cherry on top of the big shitey cake that we've been eating since 2012.
I agree.
Right? So what we actually did last year, we're winning on the park, was we washed away everything that went before, because what happened on our side of Glasgow was utter unrefined joy. What happened on their side of Glasgow is they realised that it had all been for naught. All that, Godin, everything else been for naught. And we could talk about that in another podcast, right? But that is why the board backed the manager and said, right, listen, we're actually going to take decisions which fiscally probably aren't the best, but that's why. And it's one of the ones where you balance up a footballing versus a financial gamble, and it was 100% worth it, and it came through. Now, if it hadn't come through, we'd probably have a bit of problems, but it never happened. So why even think about it? So this is a big thing. The fourth pillar is going to kick in. We are going to start selling players, and see, once we do start selling players, we're going to be financially viable. We'll be sustainable. Dare I say it, we're going to be very like Celtic in that, they're a massive loss the other year, and they sold Kieran Tierney, and it shored up the finances almost to the penny. Things like that are a sign of a well-run football club, a well-run footballing side, dare I say it, and we're going to start doing it. Now, I'll qualify it by saying I don't think we're sitting here saying, right, we need to sell somebody for 20 million every year. I'm talking about a sensible sale or two under 10 million. So if you're sitting looking at our squad just now, Davey, and you say, right, say come the end of the summer or end of the season, and we want to have a kind of mini rebuild and a natural turnover, and we want to make sure the books get looked after, then you sell a Rebo for, and I'm being funny here, you sell a Rebo for 6 million. I think 6 million for a Rebo would be a steal, right? But you sell him for 6, you might sell somebody else for 4 or 5. I'm not talking about wholesale mega sales like Dembele or Kieran Tierney for Celtic. I think you just need to be sensible about it. And the kind of balance is that you get something out of them football wise, and then you get a wee bit of return when you sell them on. It's like a car. You get a good bit of mileage out of it, but you don't rip the arse out of it, and then you sell it, and you get enough to go into your next car. So, see, Daisy, your wee dog agrees. So
yeah, she does. Yeah, big fan.
Thanks. So this is the big thing. Player trading will happen. So let's go back to the positives, because there are quite a few. And the first one I'd like to go to is the commercial side of stuff, because James Bisgrove is a name that gets mentioned, and I think we can see by our football strip that he's working really hard, because we've got more sponsors than we've ever had on that strip. But we've just had a pandemic. Very, very testing time for all businesses. They're looking at their finances, sponsorship, stuff like that is probably not going to be majorly on their agenda. Survival is on a lot of their agenda, not mind anything else. But James Bisgrove and his team, their remit are sponsorship, advertising, commercial and retail. And on the books, these combined jumped from 7 million to 9.3 million, right? That's during a pandemic. So that's 33% growth during a pandemic. So regardless of what anybody says, you can't really paint that any other way than it's a major success, and it bodes really well for the future of the commercial department, because I know they've got big aspirations and they're expanding as we speak. So that is major, and that's one of those 4 pillars I was talking about. So the fact that it's still got a bit of headroom of growth means that we can expect the overall revenue to go up. That will contribute to it. So there's 2 things. We're going to have more commercial in the future, and we're going to have player trading, right? So that sees your revenue go up again. But in there is the thing that everybody's been asking me about, which is Castore. Now, Castore is it's one that's probably been a victim of its own success, because we've seen the shirt sales, we've seen things fly out the door, we're inundated with ranges, and no matter what we say about Castore, you can't say that they don't have a lot of product and they don't market it well. They do. And I believe that you, Davey, spend about 40 grand a year on Castore gear, but that's another story. So the Castore deal,
which I never wear, so I'll be the only guy in 20 years who has Castore, because I just hang it up in my collection. So I'll be the only guy in 20 years who has Castore stuff that's still not falling to bits. So well done me.
So I'm going to spend 5 minutes on Castore, because this is the one that everybody wants to know about. And again, I don't know the details. I'm not privy to Rangers information because it's commercially sensitive. But what I have done is I went and asked a couple of folk who will know far, far better than me. Now, where we were when we started with Castore, we're stuck in a deal with Hummel. We've still got Ashley hanging over us at that time. He had the right to match any deal that was offered to us, right? So we're in a really, really sticky wicket. And we don't really have the leverage in the market to say, we are Rangers, we sell 500,000 strips a year. We don't really have that, because it's not really been the case since, pre-administration, right? So you're talking about the Umbro years, maybe at best. So you can't just go to the market and say, hey, by the way, Adidas or Nike going to give us a big check that matches Celtic because we're just the same. You can't do that. You've got to demonstrate. You've got to have a track record. So we were back at the bottom rung of merchandise, that kind of hierarchy, if you like. Loads of promise, but we couldn't demonstrate it. So the Castore deal looks to me with kind of, quite educated eyes, I think, was a marriage of convenience, because Castore, small start-up company, very niche at the time, they saw Rangers as an opportunity to utterly catalyse their company and generate, well, a wee bit of seed investment into us, generate sales which will allow Castore to grow, quite exponentially. And you can see that now. They've got a big HQ and everything else that's happening in Manchester. They've got a lot of investment. That's probably reading between the lines based on the fact that Rangers has supercharged that company. So what we've been able to do in the back of that is the quid quo pro is that we've been allowed to sell jerseys, get a payment from them once a year, which is probably, in my estimation, it'll be around about the 3 million mark. And then we'll have royalties for everything sold. Now, what we do know is in the public domain is that in Stevie Clifford's Four Lads Had a Dream blog way back when the Castore deal kind of started, one of the Behon brothers that owns the company said, look, this will be, and it was a throwaway figure, 25 million over 5 years. So you're talking 5 million per year. And in the books this year, we had about 4.2 from memory. So it was a wee bit on the low side. And I think folk have said
4.2. Yeah, and people were a wee bit like, okay, that seems low.
It's all right, but right. Now, I thought I'd predicted between 4 to 5.5 million, which is, I know is a big, pretty broad band, but I'm like, that's quite on the low side, right? So when you think about it, you do have a pandemic, so all your stores are closed, so you've not been able to expand your physical stores as much as you wanted to, and you've had no sales from them whatsoever. Now, I know we live in an online world, but even so, on physical presences generate revenue for you. So we never had that for the whole period of these accounts for that 4.2 million taken into account, right? Now, then folks say to me, right, but hold on, Celtic record something like 22 million for their retail. They're completely different. Their 22 million is the top line revenue for their chain of shops. So if you think back to pre-JJB with Rangers, we used to have the Rangers shop network. They're still working that model, right, where they run the shops. They have all the income that comes through every one of these shops, but what they have to then take an account of is all the costs that go with it. So that's their top line. Our 4.2 million is our bottom line. That's your profit. So with Celtic, if we were to have the equivalent operation for Celtic, i.e. we had our own shops, would probably be generating, and again, I reckon about 16 million versus their 22. So we're a bit behind where they are, but they are a mature retail operation, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So a bit of way to go, but not insurmountable. But again, I go back to the context. We're only 1 year into a proper deal, because the Hummel deal and all the rest of it, we can't really count that because that went belly up. So we don't really, I don't know if we've ever even been paid anything for them. So the Castore deal, to my mind, is actually ticking along nicely, and it will get better. I think you'll see that number go up. I think you'll see it go up when the stores get back open. We expand that network, and then we'll get better, because then you're going to have Edmiston House, you'll have a retail outlet in there. I think we should have an expectation of 5 million a year from Castore. And the context of that is we have no shops to worry about, we have no staff to worry about, we have no overheads to worry about. That's a simple and efficient way of generating your profit from merchandise. So I would take away a wee bit of hysteria about Castore. I've got to be really honest. And I hope that goes some way to answering a lot of questions that folk have got about it. It's doing its part. Where we'll see commercial growth is the hospitality will get better, right? Because we've not had that for a year. The soccer academies is actually a big thing, right? It probably makes, I don't know, $500,000 a year, something like that. There's a lot of scope for that. We're going to have Edmiston House very soon. So I can't remember, £7-8 million to build that facility. I think people will be shocked. Well, I'm saying people will be shocked. Nobody that supports Rangers will be shocked, but externally people will be shocked at how much we make for our museum. Right? I think we will easily make £1 million clear profit from Edmiston House each year, and that's just playing at it. Right? Because I know, see if Rangers said the doors to Ibrox were open every day, come in, there'd be 1,000 folk a day there.
There would.
Wouldn't there? There would
Yeah.
be. So they're effectively doing, here's a museum, we're going to open it every day for you. This thing will be a goldmine for Rangers, and that's only one facet of Edmiston House. We've went to 42 partners. So by partners, James Bisgrove has been really working hard to get commercial partners who pay a fee each year to be. So you had, try to think of one recently, Black Rooster, Peri, for example, right? They all paid a fee to Rangers, and they get an association, they get in the boards, and they get called a partner or something. See, to do that, see, to take it from wherever it was, 12 to 41, 42 in a pandemic environment. That's utterly amazing, right? Now, even if James Bisgrove has brought them on at a lower premium just now, because things are tight, and said, right, well, listen, we'll give you a deal when you come on as a Rangers partner, and it's going to cost you less than normal. The chances are they'll stick with Rangers now, and then things ratchet up, and you get more, and you get more, and you get more. So
one of the complaints I see about that quite a lot, and gets put to me quite a lot, is that these aren't blue chip organisations that Rangers are partnering with. What would you say in response to that?
I'd say small apples or sweet apples, because you get a more, I'm not going to use the word emotional, but you get a closer tie-in with people that are, well, for example, a more local company or a company that's got a local presence, right? So you could have a European company that's got a local presence. That's a tighter and more emotional connection between Rangers and that company, because what we've just had there is we've had, again, a pandemic. Now, as part of the partnership, I dare say Rangers would be saying to them, right, we'll give you tickets and hospitality. Maybe not every week, but every month or whatever. That'll be an intrinsic part of the deal so that these companies can wine and dine clients. That's not been there for the whole of last season. And still these companies have remained faithful to Rangers. And now we're out that particular issue, that they're going to get something back for it. So that in itself is proof positive of the intangible relationship, that whether it's client relationship management, Bisgrove might be absolutely superb at that, or Bisgrove and his team might be great at that. Whatever's happened there, it's worked, and we've come out the other end, because normally what would happen is if you've not got that connection, a company will just say, hold on, you mean we're not getting any tickets or hospitality this year and I've just paid you X £1,000? I'll just bin it. They've stuck with us. That says something. So there's a lot of good stuff happening there in terms of the commercial. Rangers TV, we don't really have the figures on, we don't get sight on it. But I'll tell you right now, I would bet my house that the subscriptions are, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 times what they were pre-pandemic and pre-My Gers. So I'll very quickly tell you about My Gers. My Gers, we all know the issues we've got with the ticketing system and everything else, but see, from a financial point of view, a mega success. It's generating over £1 million a year, easy. And in the accounts, it specifically says all proceeds are directly supporting the first team operations. So that tells you that either every penny's been sucked up by the first team, or it means that in future, if we reduce the wage bill, that £1 million that my Gears generates might be redirected to the ticketing site, which we all know is getting major problems. So
Yeah, you're not kidding.
For my Gears, for all its problems, you can't turn around and say, let's abandon it and abandon £1 million a year. There's 10 million in the next decade. You can't just turn away and say, right, we don't like it, let's not have my Gears. And people are buying it. So the marketing of it must be right. There must be a demand. I think if they can get the actual ticket side of it and the actual loyalty points sorted out, and we become more attuned to it and familiar with it, I think it'll be fine. I've always said that. If teething problems, we just need to persevere and it'll be fine. And let me see, Davey, I've got about 100 points here. One big positive that's coming up. The board targets profitability at EBITDA level by June. So EBITDA is EBITDA. I'm not even going to try to explain what it means, but basically it gives an insight to the kind of day-to-day trading. So by June 2022, we expect on an EBITDA level, which is kind of like day-to-day, to be trading profitably. And this is where I go back to what I said at the start of the conversation about accounts. If we can come out of a pandemic and a year later be golden, then that is a concrete proof that the strategy works and the strategy is going well. So there's a load of things to be positive about. There are major concerns that we need to take into account, right? So going concern is a part of the accounts which is it grabs the attention of people that maybe don't like us. And the harsh truth is that we need 7.5 million before the end of the season, right? So we've done forward projections and the auditors have agreed we need 7.5 million quid injected into us before the end of the season. It wasn't really a surprise. Now, how that will happen is probably somebody will either give us debt or will take equity, or they'll take debt and convert it later to equity, as has been the case. But see, the season after, we only need 400k. And I say only, but 400k is pretty negligible by the numbers we've been dealing with in the last 3-4 years. So this is a massive indication of the direction of travel, right? I don't see it as anything but a positive, because you're 7 years into a 10-year recovery by 22-23. That means that after the 7th year, you're kind of getting back to break even. And by the way, you've got the 55th title in the bag as well. That to me is fine and dandy, right? So loads going on. Last thing I want to say, and I said this last year, Douglas Park and John Bennett. Now, I said at the start, I'm a wee bit biased because emotionally I feel so much, I owe so much, and we owe so much to the board and investors, right? So it's very, very hard to be critical of them at all. But Douglas Park and John Bennett have provided incredible personal resource between them. They've committed to meet the shortfalls that are projected. So far, I think they've committed to cover over 23 million quid between them from 2021 to 22-23. That's massive, right? Now, you can say Akai where they're loaded, right? So the man in the street might say John Bennett, Douglas Park, very, very wealthy individuals, and obviously they are if they can do this, but you still need to have liquidity, right? You still need to be able to commit that. Their families, that's their family's inheritance. You know, we've got all sorts of considerations in the mix there. It's not something you just do on a whim. So we owe them big time. Just as we owed Dave King beforehand for what he did, the same thing here. And I talked about the changing of the guard. The change of the guard this year, and there might be a change of the guard again in the future. You know, you might see guys like Stuart Gibson move forward.
Yeah.
So Douglas Park, John Bennett, massive kudos for me. I think him, they two, Dave King, every other one of the investors, because there's loads of them now, are true Rangers men. They've really went above and beyond. They've helped deliver what we enjoyed last year and what we're enjoying just now as much as anybody else, because without them it just doesn't happen. And I think that going forward, once we start to break even, there's two big risks. And these are things that could really cause us problems. What if our benefactors, i.e. all those investors, what if they start to dry up, or they have a change of heart, or their financial circumstances change? That's a big problem to us if we're still relying on them. And then the second big thing is European football. What if we have a couple of cataclysmic seasons in Europe and we don't reach the group stages? So those are two things we need to be very, very mindful of. But by the way, we're not the only football club that have that problem. Right? Celtic have the same problem with regards to European football, but they don't have a safeguard of a sugar daddy. Right? So in that regard, we're probably in a better position than them. And then you've got clubs in England who are just a bigger version of what we've had in the last 3 years, which is just total losses covered by individuals. Fulham, Chelsea, all these clubs run exactly the same type of model that we've been running for the last 3-4 years, just on a far, far bigger scale with no end sight. It's just an endless pit of money for them. We've actually had a design to get back to a break-even point. So those are the two big things that do worry me. But if we don't qualify for Europa League, then you have got a wee bit of a safety net in the Conference League now. So the numbers won't be as big for Conference League, but you still have gates, you still have games, and I think you have one extra game, right? So that offsets that risk a wee bit. The flip side of it is if you get into Champions League, then it's like a nitro boost. It's another, I don't know, 15-20 million extra on top of it. So if we do win the league this year, then it changes the dynamic for a short term. You can still budget on Europa League money and then get the Champions League money and then reinvest and do things that you maybe couldn't have done otherwise. So this year's big, football-wise and financially, because that automatic Champions League spot for the winner this year, it's just as important to keep out of the hands of Celtic as it is for us. It's a 6-pointer, double whammy. We win it, we get it, and they lose it. They win it, they get it, and we lose it. So a lot rides in this, and that's why we need to really make sure that season goes our way. If it doesn't go our way, then it's not going to be fatal. This is the best thing about this set of accounts. This board realise that it's no boom and bust, and there are mitigations in place. We have a very broad and diverse investor base now. So I spoke about Douglas Park and John Bennett. What happens if something happens to them? Because their guarantees aren't strictly binding, right? If something happened to either of the two tomorrow, we couldn't enforce their estates, for example, to honour the commitment they made. But what we do have, we've got a lot of guys in there at the background, which there's no guarantee, but they could step up to the mark. And you've got, I mentioned Stuart Gibson, you've got a guy called John Halstead from a kind of major private equity company. He's got a wee stake in us now. You've got George Latham, George Taylor, who I believe are very, very good at bringing people to the table. You've got a lot of wealth individuals there, which I would like to think would be able to find a solution. So the bit everybody waits for me to say is I'm comfortable. I'm not comfortable with a £23.5 million debt loss, right? But I think we're in a good position, and it's all in the context. In isolation, you can't have a £23.5 million loss every year. Of course you can. But when you look at the context, where we are, where we've been, and where we're projecting to be, I'm comfortable, totally comfortable with it. A lot of scar tissue still remains. I think I say the bandages are off, but where we're heading to, Davey, is sustainability with on-field success. That is the panacea. That's what every football club wants, sustainability, but still we'll be winning things in the park. We're very, very close to that, very close. And what we've got as well, Davey, is that the fans have been putting in money. I mean, you know yourself. I know it. The bank account it's just Rangers. There's all these money's going out to Rangers because we want to. The guys on the board have been doing the same, and we've all been pulling in the same direction. That's why we got where we wanted to be last year, because we sold 707 less season tickets during the pandemic than we did the season before. We take that for granted because we just say, "Hi, Rangers fans buy season tickets," and that's just what we do. We take that for granted. That is utterly incredible to buy in those numbers, 17 million quid's worth of numbers, knowing we're not going to get in that stadium at all. So we've done our bit. The board's done their bit. We've been pulling in the same direction, whether we really realise that or not. That is extremely rare at any football club. Any football club.
Definitely.
And I think we have to make sure that we don't take that for granted, Davey, because the longer that dynamic continues, the more indestructible we are in every sense. So I've kind of rabbited on long as that. We're up to an hour and a half or something.
It's an hour and a quarter, but what I would say is big party weekend at your house, I take it, this weekend there.
See my wife. So I finished my work. I finished it. So
see,
I was
the only
working on
thing
Friday.
though, well, see, the only thing in your defence here is that of all the people I know, the one person's wife who would want to actually hear about the accounts is yours.
She's exciting me, but I'll tell you what happened on Friday. Right, I had a really busy day on Friday at my work, and I got a thing through. I think Colin McMillan says, "You coming on the update today? That's the accounts out." And my first reaction was, "Fuck off!" Oh no, I know the accounts, right? Because I'm not going to be looking at this. So I finished work, and then the next thing I spent 4 hours on this, and I quite enjoy it. I'm going to admit. And then Saturday was basically trying to work out how to get it on Twitter and all this kind of stuff. But you know, misinformation was the word you used, Davey. And I don't do this just to do Rangers a favour. I do this because this is what I believe to be the correct interpretation of our accounts. Because you can take numbers and you can paint them any way you want. And we've seen that in the press during the weekend. I think the Evening Times had a decent article which kind of echoes what I'm saying. And then, as you say, you had Stephen McGowan, disgrace to the name, who had his article in the Daily Mail, which was basically saying, have Rangers not learned from their mistakes? And, doomsday is just around the corner, and total propaganda from, I read it and I thought, this is just laughable. So it can be twisted any way you want, but I'm trying to give a kind of balanced angle, acknowledging, however, I am a Rangers fan. I do like the board. I think this is a fair reflection of where we're at.
I know, all joking aside, and we do rip the piss at them regularly, folks, but it's important for guys like me who, I would be the first to admit, a lot of this is just, I got to read the accounts and I'm like, this might as well be in Greek for all I'm taking in of it. To get someone that we trust, like yourself, who we know has the best interest of Rangers at heart, but equally isn't going to sugarcoat stuff. The bad stuff, as you say. I mean, it is a big loss, but yeah, I'm a wee bit happier after hearing that. Right, folks, if you want to read Andy's article and you want to get more info on pretty much everything Rangers, just go to our Patreon. It's patreon.com/heart and hand, where from just $1.99 per month, you can get up to 5 shows every single day on all things Rangers. Thanks to our executive producers in London, Mike Lee and Paul Miles, and Andy, genuinely, thank you.
I was going to say my pleasure like I usually do, but I'm not so sure this week.
No, you can have the month off. No, we'll get you back on for the New Year game. How about
that? That no more than I usually do anyway.
But it's a new year, see?
Okay.
Well, it eats into next year's 11th, not this year's.
True.
Right, folks, thank you for joining us. Remember, no flagship next week because there's no football next weekend. Unfortunately, we're into the international break. The good thing is it's the last international break. And then when we come back, another big game to look forward to as we go to Hampden to take on Hibs in the League Cup semi-final. So my thanks to everyone for listening, and we'll be back in a fortnight. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.